Yes, it is I, your humble host, Bill Hatch the Third, coming to you live from the palatial home studios of Bald Spots Productions here in the beautiful city of Santa Ana, California. Joining me in studio is my friend, my brother in Christ, the disembodied voice of Rudy.
Hi, everybody, I love you all. Make sure you're safe and healthy.
I just woke him out. With the Lord. I just woke him up from a dead sleep. And joining us from a more than acceptable safe social distance is my guest for this very special episode of Not Quite After Midnight, Doug Lawrence. How you doing, Doug?
Doing great. Thank you very much.
Oh goodness, yes, we are indeed doing a very special episode. You've been on the show before, the show I call the Round Table, and with I believe it was Kim Lendling, if I recall, from out in Pennsylvania, so from CA to PA. But this time it's just the two of us, and we get to have a little bit of focus on your things, which is cool because you are truly a one of a kind guest. As the only certified journey mentor of the wait a minute. Oh, I can't remember the name of the organization.
International Mentoring Community.
The International Mentoring Community. And yes, unless somebody else has come along and gotten certified.
Nope.
Nope, it's just too tough, huh?
Nope. Well, there's that to it. It's part of it. I think is the aspect of, do you want to drive a Cadillac or do you want to drive a Chev? And for the most part, a lot of people go, the Chev will do. But
right.
For me, with the folks that I work with and some of the things that I'm doing, I needed the Cadillac.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to own a Caddy. And I can definitely understand what you mean. It was a nice car, a nice ride, and there's something special about having the best of something, and I strive to do that myself. I've got a couple of certifications I want to get after this year, and definitely. But what is it? What's it take to be a certified journey mentor with the International Mentoring Community?
Well, so the Journey Mentor certification is the sort of the last stepping stone, I guess, for lack of a better choice of words. So there's a prerequisite, so you have to go through and you have to take your certificate of practice mentor first and go mm-hmm. through that one and get certified. And then that qualifies you to go on and continue to pursue the Journey Mentor one. The Journey Mentor certification was created with the idea in mind of sort of being the mentor of mentors, so you would help guide people through the certification process. Because there's obviously there's paperwork that needs to be done, case studies and all that sort of stuff. In addition to, having to have a mentoring log where you log all your mentoring activity and then being able to speak to it when you go through the certification process. The one thing for both of those, for the certificate of practice mentor and the certificate of practice journey mentor, is that you go through what we call a verification panel interview, where you're the certificate of practice mentor. It's about an hour to maybe an hour and a half in duration. And the other one, the Journey Mentor one, I remember when I did it the first time, it was about 2.5 hours. Wow. Where you're basically verifying that you have the experience to become a certified mentor based on the criteria is assessed against about 72 different competencies or action outcome statements. Mm-hmm. So it has the potential to become very complex, I guess, and for some folks it's probably a little unnerving that you have to be able to think on your feet and be able to come up with examples to show that you actually have, that you're demonstrating that you understand the concepts and processes and you've actually applied those in a real life situation.
Okay. Wow, that's yeah, it almost sounds like getting your master's at least, if not a doctorate.
It's pretty intense, but you know going through the process, and I've actually recertified just in December. I
Oh
recertified
wow.
as a journeyman. So your original certification is good for 2 years, and
Mhm.
then you have to go through. Basically, you go through the same process as though you were getting certified for the first time. So you appear before a panel, verification panel, that they ask you questions, and
Mhm.
you're expected to be able to, you know, provide examples, and you walk through the process that you actually took to be able to help that individual deal with what it is they're dealing with. Um, and then what was the outcome? You know, how did it flesh itself out at the end of the day? Was the person able to grow from a personal and a professional basis? And if so, what did that look like? And all those sort of things.
Wow. Well, you've kind of answered my next question was going to be was what does a journey mentor do? And you said it was a mentor of mentors. Is that primarily whom you mentor?
Actually, the other part, which is probably more important, certainly for me, it is that the journey mentor is also somebody that will be working in or is working in the mental health space.
Oh, okay.
And so you've got the mental health space is sort of number one, and then the second one is the aspect of mentoring individuals who want to go through the certification process.
Okay.
Um, it, it's really important that you know, especially at the journey mentor level, it's important that you're engaged in both, because you know what I've found with the research and stuff that I've done and the conversations I've had with people is that there is definitely a need for that journey mentor or even just a mentor to be involved in the mental health process, because there's a huge gap. And that gap is, I'm diagnosed today by a psychologist or a psychiatrist
Mhm.
of having post traumatic stress. I may have to wait 4 to 6 months before I actually get to see them again. And
Right.
in that interim, there is not, there's no stopgap filler, whatever term you want to use. There's nothing that's there that's going to, that I can turn to somebody or to a program or something like that. There's very little of that that's available. So that's why the Journey Mentor, why I worked real hard at getting the Journey Mentor created, so to speak, in order to be able to provide that support structure that doesn't exist today.
Mhm. Wow. No, we definitely have a heart for the mental health community around here. In fact, made the final slide on the ending credits now is for 988, our new mental health crisis line here in the states. Yeah, and yeah, I deal with ADD and major depression. Um, and those make an interesting combination.
Mm-hmm.
um, I can get distracted from my own ruminations. But in the mental health space, do you have a specialty or a leaning of people you tend to help over there, or
You know, it's a mixture. That's probably the best way. It is indeed a mixture, but there's some things that I'm seeing. Like I do, I mentor young entrepreneurs
mm,
who are just getting started in their business. And usually, what I find is that when we have our first or second meeting together and we start talking about different things, that for the most part, at least the ones that I've been working with, most of them are dealing with mental health challenges of some sort.
mm,
And we need to be able talk our way through what does that look like, and what are some of the coping skills and mechanisms that they can put into place to be able to deal with that. Because if we're not able to do that, that's the mental health challenges are going to become obstacles or barriers to them being able to move their business forward.
Okay. Okay. No, that's awesome. Awesome mix. Because many mental health issues have come with unexpected gifts. My
Yeah.
ability to hyper focus on a project to the exclusion of all else. Well, when it's going wrong, that's depression. But when it's going right, it is something that has allowed me to finish projects in one fell swoop. I once wrote a licensing proposal that should have taken 3 weeks at least worth of legal research and all that, and I was able to hyper focus at the Starbucks, and with the help of a little coffee, I got it done in like 4 days, 4 or 5 days, and
That's
yeah, it when it's going right, and yeah, you get the right help and all, but yeah, so tell me, what's the difference between a therapist and a mentor and a coach? Let's get those differences so we can focus you in on your niche.
So the coach is how I describe coaching anyhow, is that it's typically performance driven. So it's typically the relationship or the arrangement is of a shorter time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And there are similarities between a coach and a mentor as
Mm-hmm.
far as some of the approaches. For me, longer term relationship is definitely what sort of stands out from a mentoring perspective. Like I've got, some clients that I work with in leadership mentoring that we've been working together for probably 7 or 8 years now.
Wow.
And they just need somebody to, to listen and hear, who's non-judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
who knows the questions to ask to help guide them to where they need to go to figure out the answer. So there's that part. A therapist is somebody, from my perspective, is somebody that's actually gone and got professional training of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think of uh, I lost my wife to cancer in 2021,
Oh
and
wow.
I still am going through the grieving process. But
Mm-hmm.
what's been interesting is that there's all kinds of different modalities that are out there to be able to help you work your way through, the whole aspect of grief, and how it impacts your mental health. And what I've been able to find is that that's increasing as well. So the therapist is the person that I would turn to, who has that sort of that tool chest of all these different modalities that they've been excuse me, trained or certified in.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I've always seen, because I do leadership development coaching, and as one of my day jobs, I just can't have enough day jobs. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've always seen the difference between a coach and a therapist. Is the therapist looks at the past, and the coach is supposed to look at the future. And yeah, and I wanted to see how mentoring fit into the space, and I think you said it very well. Um,
Thank you.
but yeah, yeah. What other training have you gone through to get where you are?
I've done uh, cognitive behavior therapy training.
Okay.
I have done some trauma training through
That's
the
nice.
Arizona Institute for Trauma.
Okay.
I've done some basic stuff that you grab online, and
Uh-huh.
and you know it I was just trying to think. There's some stuff available through LinkedIn, some that's available through Udemy, online college and stuff like that. So I've done some of those. I just off the top of my head, the ones that jump out is the Arizona Institute for Trauma.
Yeah.
Excuse me. What that was a very intense course, online course with an exam at the end. So that was definitely, and then the cognitive behavior therapy was one that I found quite interesting as well. And then the rest of it is it's just experience, because a lot of
Yeah.
the skill sets that you need, like you need to have you need to be an active listener, so you need to be able to listen and hear. You need to know how to conduct a conversation so that you can you know sort of help guide the person along talking about what it is they're dealing with, and how they see or how they feel they could deal with it, and sort of be able to guide them through that. Because a lot of the stuff, like I find even with grief is, to me now, grief is part of the mental health story.
Right.
And what I find is that some days it's really difficult to have that conversation, because your emotions kick in. There's other, you're thinking of other things, when you need to really truly be focused on, okay, how am I going to deal with this, and short term and long term.
Okay. Um, what can somebody expect from a first mentoring session?
We're going to have a conversation about expectations.
Mhm.
I really like the idea of setting expectations right at the beginning. So, what's your understanding of mentoring? What do you hope to get from our time that we're going to spend together? What are some of the things that cause you to lay awake at night? What are some of the things that are taking place in the workplace that you're not quite sure how you're going to deal with it? Let's let's make that a list of some of those things that you would like to explore, and then we can kind of create a roadmap of how we're going to explore those different points, and quite possibly what is the outcome that you're looking for at the end of that. And then conversely, from my perspective, is that I have certain expectations, that if we schedule a time that you show up for the session, and if you can't make it, that you have a cell phone, so you either call me or text me, and let me know, because there's other people waiting for the opportunity to have that
Sure.
conversation, and you're basically kind of throwing that opportunity out the window when you don't show up. So, and I know in the coaching world, you would pay, and I've done that as well. I've actually, with some folks, when they've kind of missed a couple in a row, I've said, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to bill you for my time." And that kind of wakes people up.
Yeah. Yeah, I've run into those situations before, and
Yeah.
yeah, you can't. It also goes to valuing your time in the first place. Um, your time is valuable, which is certainly why I appreciate you spending the time here with me today. But yeah, and you can't waver on that. If somebody wastes your time, somebody's got to pay for it. But
Yeah.
your website is talentc.ca,
Correct.
and that's where you can get into contact, find out a little bit more about Doug, and there's a bunch of great stuff on here about mentoring and speaking, and you've even got a blog. I haven't quite caught up, haven't quite done yet, but yeah. And you also work with full businesses and do culture assessments. What is a culture assessment?
So a culture assessment is primarily when I do those so that I can sort of determine whereabouts the organization is. Is it mentor ready? So could we walk in tomorrow and implement a mentoring program in the organization? that's kind of the gist behind it. And the process that I have, that I've created and I've used in, I don't know, probably half a dozen different places, is to, depending on the size of the organization, I'll interview either everybody or a random sample of employees.
Mhm.
And typically I ask two questions, sort of as icebreakers to kind of get the conversation going.
Mhm.
But is the first question is, can you describe your organization's culture in 3 words or less? And the second question is, if there were any 5 things that you could change in the organization, one of which cannot be firing somebody, what would they be and why?
Yeah, you got to
And
add in
that,
the not firing somebody.
yeah, because that, we'll just get rid of John. John's got to go and everything will be rosy. Not always. And so what ends up happening is I do all these interviews and then I take all the data from the interviews and I put it into sort of into silos, if you want to call it that. And from that, I come up with recommendations on how we could change the organization, how we could do some things better. One solution is typically, it could be leadership mentoring. It could be implementing a mentoring program for the entire organization. It could be, let's do a pilot project and see what comes out of it. You know, as far as we'll implement mentoring in maybe for 10 or 15 employees, and then we'll do a feedback loop at the end of that to sort of determine, is that a good investment of money and time and all those things. So, and it's worked well. It's worked really well, actually.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, so you've had, I'm guessing you've had to turn away prospects then if you have qualifying questions.
I, I've had a few, not many, because I am the sort of person that I always, my story is that I will not leave anyone on the island by themselves.
Mm.
And so if you need help, and you know, I'll go the extra mile to make sure that you get it. And
Right.
if if you start to, we'll say, if you start to abuse that gift, then we'll sit down and have another conversation and sort of, is this not working for you? What do we need to do different so that you get more value out of this? And sort of the conversation goes in that direction, because I don't, somebody misses a couple sessions, I want to know why.
Mhm.
Because there could be something, that they're dealing with, that um, there could be a death in the family. There
Sure.
could be all kinds of different things going on that I'm not, I'm not initially aware.
Oh.
Excuse me, I need to be able to, um, I need to be able to figure it out so we can roadmap.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I know it's hard to leave somebody who's asking for help on the island, but sometimes you do just have to say, I can't help you.
Yeah.
There's here for whatever reason, and usually it's just not being ready to be helped. Um, some of these people need a 12-step program. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you've actually touched on one of the things that I do offer to organizations, and it's mentoring versus termination is what I call it.
Mhm.
And basically what it is if you're thinking of terminating this employee, give them to me for 5 1-hour sessions, and if I can't turn that employee around in those 5 hours,
Mhm.
then you have a decision that you need to make, is, do we want to still go ahead and fire this individual or not? Because, and I think I've had one that, we just couldn't get him to
Yeah.
move and stay rowing in that consistent fashion. We just couldn't get him. I could go and have a conversation with that individual, and he'd be good for maybe 2 days, and then he'd start sliding. And of course, I'm not on site.
Right.
So if I'm not on site, I can't correct the behavior. But uh, at the end of the day, he was the only one that the organization just said, we're not investing any more money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, a decision always has to be made when, when something's going. But I often promote training or retraining, because the type of the style of leadership development I use I call ethical leadership, and it involves actionable behaviors like humility, controlled justice and discipline. Um, it's like you don't go around punishing the employees for doing poorly. You go in and you help them. You find a
Yeah,
mentor for them, and
yeah,
because it's on top of everything else, it's so much cheaper to try to get some training into somebody than it is to hire somebody brand new and have to train them anyway.
yeah, yeah. Because it's what, 1.5 to 2 times the annual salary to replace
Yeah,
somebody?
yeah, it's something like that.
Something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Somebody should have told Elon Musk that before he started firing Twitter. Uh,
Yeah. Well, we gotta, some have to learn the hard way, I guess.
yep, yep. But yeah. I'm looking through the blog here on talentc.ca, and seeing some. I see the one of the most recent ones. Will a bully make a good corporate leader? I think we're on the edge of talking about that, because I think we have very similar opinions of what makes a good leader. What does make a good leader in a corporation?
It's from my perspective, it's somebody that is very people focused and is looking to motivate employees. It basically is a role model, because I take a look at. I've always said that a good mentor is a good leader. A good leader is a good mentor, and it's part of the reason why is because there's similar skill sets. Like, they're typically, both of them are great
Mm-hmm.
communicators. They know all the different steps of how to communicate effectively. They're both role models. They know how to lead by example. They know all the things that they need to do to show their appreciation, um, for their employees. I think it was the president of Microsoft Canada who, and I think it was Christmas. Don't quote me on it, but he had little gift cards done up with I think it was like a gift card from a coffee place or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. He gave that penned little notes into each one and gave that to every single one of his employees at Christmas.
Nice. Yeah.
You sort of go, okay, I am appreciated. And in a lot of the organizational mentoring that I do, I
Mm-hmm.
hear a lot of that where people, employees say, we don't feel valued.
Right.
And, so I remember it was a senior government manager
Mm-hmm.
who said to me one day that, you know, he said, I don't know, I feel like a stranger with my staff. And I said, here's what we're going to do. Every day, you're going to come to work and you're going to take the first 30 minutes of your day and you're going to walk the floor. And by walk the floor, you're going to go around to as many workplace, as many workstations as you possibly can. And you're going to strike a conversation and you're going to learn something about each and every one of your employees. So if little Johnny was playing hockey last night, you're going to talk to his mom and say, how did little Johnny do playing hockey? How many goals and assists did he get? You know, and you're sending a message that, oh my goodness, this guy really cares about me because he's paying attention to what I'm doing and what my
Mm-hmm.
family's doing. And sees that and so he started to do that, and he was quite surprised at the outcome from that.
Hmm.
And, I learned the hard way. I used to, in my days in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, I'd come to work and go downstairs to the cafeteria and sit with the boys and have a coffee. And then it was time to go to work and take off and go up to my office and sit at, behind my desk and just work away. And the only time I left my office was if I had to go and have a performance discussion with an employee. So it got to the point where anytime they saw me, I used to jokingly say they all ran to see who could get under the desk and hide because here comes Doug and somebody's in trouble. And I went, that's just not me. That's people are getting the wrong idea. And so I did that. I was the first one to do that, which was to, take my cup and maybe wander the floors and go and see all the staff I had in different locations and, just, try to build that relationship because that was really important to them and it had to be important to me. So, to drill that home, that's what my expectations of a great leader would be, is somebody that's plugged into their team and what their team does, both personal and professional.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, public sector, it can be employees can be very difficult when it comes to inspiring them to do better. Because the finance normally, I mean, in a corporation, you always, no matter what else is going on, you always have the financial incentive. It's like if you do a good job, you could get a promotion and more money. But in the public sector, it's if you can hold on for just a little longer, you'll get a promotion. You know? And so that financial incentive's not there, so it can be really difficult to find ways for people there to feel inspired to do better than they're doing. And definitely that personal connection, I think, is a great incentive. Being an inspirational leader, a transformational leader, is definitely the way to go there, because it's just so difficult otherwise. Um,
Yeah, and the other thing is, don't be afraid in your organization if you're in a leadership position. Don't be afraid to start to find mentors to work with your
mhm,
employees,
for sure.
because that sends a huge, here they've gone and found me this person that's going to help me be a better person, that's going to help me grow personally and professionally,
Hmm.
and I didn't even ask, and they've just done that for me, and you know it's going to make a world of difference. That's
Yeah.
what they say. So let's give it a try.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, what would you say is how do you determine what the best way to inspire your team to do better? Um,
Well,
yeah.
you know, one of the things that I'd like to suggest is that if you want to inspire your team, make them a part of the strategic planning process.
Hmm.
And I know that sounds like, oh, really? We have to be involved in that stuff, but I've taken people through that
Hmm.
exercise where I remember one time my boss came in and presented the strategic plan to a number of employees, and I waited till he left the room, and then I took over and I said, okay, so here's what we're going to do. I want each of us to write down on a piece of paper, when you think of any one of the goals that were listed in the strategic plan, when you think of any one of those goals, what's your contribution to the success of the organization
Hmm.
achieving that goal? And it ended up there was, a lot of them. And one of the one of the things that we also talked about was the aspect of what are some of the things you do at home that if you were to bring that to the workplace, that it would add value, because part of them were saying, geez, I can't think of anything. And so I took them down the path of what are some of the things you do at home? What about your after hour activities? So we were looking at a customer service situation. Customer service was in the strategic plan, and the employee said, I come to work and I do my job. And I said, so when you're working in the community doing community work, is that customer service? They went, oh yeah. Now I figured it out. And I've also I can remember I also had an employee come up to me and say, I'm negative based on what you said, and I got to change my behavior. And I had one other one come up and say, I'm out of here.
Wow.
So you look at all the different things the outcomes that can come from some of those conversations, but giving people the chance to sort of plug their mind into, say, the strategic plan process gives them that sense of belonging, that sense of feeling, feeling that they're actually valued.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the bottom up approach for a lot of things is definitely the way to go, because you want people to be early adopters, and one of the best ways to do that is to get them to come up with the idea. And sometimes it's a little like Inception, where you're making them think it's their own idea because they just can't figure it out. But yeah, getting the ideas from the people is certainly a great way to go. But we're coming close to the end of our time. The website is talentc.ca. That is the International Marketing or Mentoring. Sorry, Mentoring
Okay.
Association's only certified journeyman mentor or journey mentor, Doug Lawrence. And so if you go to talentc.ca, then you'll be able to learn more about mentoring and how you can get Doug's help and maybe get him to come and speak to your organization. Certainly wouldn't be a bad thing. And yeah, it's do you only work in Canada, or do you work in the stateside too?
Stateside too, and I actually I've done some work in Dubai.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
international man of
we
mystery.
yeah. No one knows what goes on behind closed doors,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah, yeah. I did that. I also did. Where did I go? Where was the other place? Shanghai. Went to Shanghai. This is all way back pre-COVID,
Right.
probably 2004 or something like
Okay.
that, I think.
But it must be really different dealing with the disparate cultures when you're because I know the U.S. and Canada are reasonably similar,
Yeah.
but going to Dubai and then to Shanghai as well, are the cultural differences challenging or
It, you kind of go with the flow, I guess, is
mm,
probably the best way to describe it. I don't, I, I try to find out as much about the culture before I travel
hmm
so that I have an idea of, like you present a business card, you hold both corners if you're in China,
hmm
you hold both corners of the business card and present it to who the person is you're being introduced
right?
to. Didn't I was just gonna rip it out of my folder and say, here you go, and you know, I researched that fortunately, so I kind of knew what was expected, and then the aspect of it was Dubai that you didn't shake if you were doing a presentation or a workshop, that when it came time to speak on one-to-one basis, that when it came to being introduced or speaking to a female in that setting, that you waited for them to extend their hand. You never assumed that they were going to shake your hand.
Okay, that's interesting. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I've loved working with other cultures in the past, primarily the Far East for me. Um, but yeah, the differences in cultures can be really interesting. Um, I once was dealing with a Korean bank, and there were Korean nationals working there, and I went to the desk and told them who it was I needed to see, and they said, "Okay, just wait over there." And they were kind of dismissive, and I kind of just was kind of wandering around the lobby a little bit, and noticed a picture of a part of Korea that I'd been to, and I made, "Oh, I remember this place," and they're like, "You've been to Korea?" And oh yes, and we chatted a bit, and the attitudes completely changed
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of where I'd been and what I'd experienced, and their homeland was very important to them, and understanding that can really change an experience completely. Um, you don't want to be an ugly American. Uh,
No, no.
but what's a good resource for researching that kind of stuff?
I went onto Google and I typed in wherever it was I was going, and culture, things to be aware of culturally.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, because I've had a couple mentoring situations, actually one where the organization brought me in because this was an employee who was from another country that had come here to
Mm.
work, and there was some issues with what was acceptable and where he came from. I think it was Pakistan,
Okay.
and and what was acceptable here for behavior as far as
Mm.
uh, greeting each other. And from his perspective in Pakistan, it was a resounding smack across the back and how's it going, so to speak. And my advice and guidance to him was to make sure that he got that first one in there, because there's going to be another one coming back that is probably going to not be as nice and friendly. Um, so it ended up we kind of worked our way
Mm.
through that, got him to understand North American culture, and kind of spoke to the employees to sort of say not acceptable his behavior, but we also have to kind of work with him or her to be
Right.
able to help them understand the North American culture.
Yeah. Okay. That's really cool. Well, we definitely are out of time, and I want to thank you again, Doug Lawrence. The website's talentc.ca. C is in Canada. So it's an interesting one. What is on the horizon for you?
Oh my goodness. I'm still. I need to start to get the publisher going to publish this next book and get that going. We're working on making some changes from a certification perspective so that maybe people will sort of see the difference between the
Mm.
Chev and the Cadillac, and maybe will even just pursue the Chev aspect so that they can
Mm.
kind of get their feet wet, and then see where that ends up
Yeah.
going. And then it's all about for me the big push, the big drive is the whole aspect of the mental health
Okay.
stuff, and getting out there and telling the story about post-traumatic stress and
Hmm.
mental health and mental well-being, and then more importantly now the story of grief and how that fits
Right.
in. I'm just totally blown away by the number of people that are struggling today with
Yeah.
grief, and how it's playing a huge impact on their mental health and mental well-being. And we need to be there for them to
Yeah.
help them work their way through that. So that's kind of another area that I'm going to be spending some time in.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. After my best friend passed away from cancer back in 2019, and that's also Rudy's wife, um, and I found such incredible help by going to a grief group. I got
Yeah,
referred to one, and it was just such an experience. I
yeah,
jokingly refer to it as my ladies group because I was the only guy
he's
in
the
the
only
entire
guy.
group.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
You know, and that speaks very highly of you because most men won't show their emotions, the emotional
right.
side, because you know we're afraid of what people will think
Mhm.
about it. But when you can do that and open up, like you're gaining, obviously gaining a whole different philosophy on how to deal with grief based on working with. I'm in the same boat. I went to therapy. It was a group session of 25 or 30
Oh wow.
people, and they suggested that at the end of this 5 or 6 week program, that if we found that there was some chemistry with certain individuals, that we could go ahead and form a smaller group. And so that's what I
Mm.
did. Was I ended up with, there's 2 guys and 2 girls, 2 ladies, sorry,
Huh.
and we meet weekly, virtually
Wow.
right now, but we meet weekly, and we've been a huge help to each other.
Yeah.
When one of us is down, the others will pick them up.
Yep. Yep. Two standing back to back can conquer, and
Yeah.
yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Stronger in numbers. Well, anyway, do you have any final words for the nice people?
Well, the only thing I'm going to suggest or say is that I just finished this week doing a series of articles that are on LinkedIn,
Okay.
um, that are on Blue Monday.
Blue Monday. Okay.
Yeah.
And
So,
if people wanted to reach out to you on LinkedIn, what's your handle over there? Are you just Doug
oh
Lawrence
gosh,
or
just search for Doug Lawrence, and you should be able to find me. And
it's,
hopefully, and if not, then go to the
go to the
website,
website?
and yeah, and then we'll do it that way.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the website, of course, is talentc.ca. I've been speaking with Doug Lawrence, former Royal Canadian Mounted Police Officer, and currently a journey mentor with the international mentoring community, an author and a speaker. Head over to the website and find out what you need, because Doug's got some great stuff for you. Thank you again for being on, spending this time with me and with us, and yeah, that's it. So to everyone out there, be safe out there. Remember to wash your hands and watch the ending credits. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been a presentation of Bald Spots Productions. I'd like to thank my producer, my beloved mother, Eileen Hatch. I, of course, am your humble host. I'd like to thank my beloved Ed McMahon, Rudy Corlew, and my special guest, Doug Lawrence. Support the show if you feel so led over on patreon.com. We're known as Bald Spots Pro. Certainly appreciate the help. And don't you dare miss YWL Online. We're there on Facebook and wherever fine podcasts are offered. Next time we'll have Larry Gents. Lori. Oh, wow, that's terrible. I can't say his name. Hold on. Closing credits, media source. Let me put it back here. Okay, let's try this again. Take 2. Don't miss YWL Online. We're on Facebook and wherever fine podcasts are offered. Tune in next time for Larry Jorgensen and Lindsay K. Blick. Going to be another interesting conversation. Please like, comment, and share to stay informed. Subscribe, follow, whatever you got to do to kick that algorithm into gear. And help us reach more people. If you or someone you know needs support now, call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org. Thank you again for tuning in, and have yourselves a wonderful whenever.